Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I have talked on the subject of Chamisa lied to the people about plugging all the vote rigging loopholes to con them to participate in flawed elections in 2023. So it's not the first time, of course. This has been going on ever since the GNU debacle. The MDC Triple C leaders have participated in flawed elections out of greed. This issue has been discussed back and forth. What I find disappointing is that even now, 2 years since the rigged 2023 elections, with all the evidence that Chamisa lied, there are some people out there who still want us to believe that he did not lie. Here is one individual was responding to that. And for those who may not be able to read it, I'll just read it out. All this utterance by Wilbert Mokori about evidence and lies from Chamisa, as I've repeatedly stated, is hogwash. Chamisa knew he had won, that he refused to share the evidence is a very sensitive matter, which I will not go into. But he won twice, clearly and fairly. This is just a nonsensical argument. What is at the heart of the argument here is that elections must follow certain rules. If the process is so flawed, so illegal, the only logical step is to withdraw. Then they can never be a legitimate winner of that process. So to keep on arguing that he won what? The process was so flawed, so illegal, that the observers dismissed it as flawed. So for somebody to then come up and say, oh, I still won it. You won what? You won what? If the observers cannot see the process as open, transparent, free, fair, and credible, they cannot judge it. Anyone who participated in those elections can stand up and make the same claim that I've won. Who is there to dispute them? The process is flawed. The process is illegal. Anyone can come up with their own result. What must be understood here is that if you know that the process is flawed, you know the process is illegal, and you still decide you want to participate, then you have got to accept the results. That point is important. SADC and the AU, election observers, condemned the election process in Zimbabwe as flawed and illegal. SADC's report was very clear on that matter. What is important here is that SADC, as observers, they have got also to look at what you, the people in the country, want. If they say to you, this process is flawed, is illegal, you should clean it up, and you still stubbornly insist in participating, SADC cannot turn around and say, we still dismiss the whole thing as illegal. This is why SADC's report condemned the process, but SADC did not go the extra mile and deny ZANU-PF legitimacy. We cannot keep on going round and round in circles here. I think the other important point I would like to make here is that when Chamisa told the people of Zimbabwe that he had plugged the vote-rigging loopholes, he also evoked the name of God. He told the people that it was God's plan. God's plan. And he was preparing his cabinet because God's plan does not fail. This is what he said.
Makorokoto Zimbabwe nokuti hakuna munhu anomira kana denga raronga plan. Denga raronga plan, denga harifoiri. Plan yaMwari haifoiri. Ini ndatanga kugadzira cabinet. There is no way we are not going to form a new cabinet. There is no way we are not going to have a celebration. There is no way we are not going to have an inauguration. Let's start preparing for our inauguration. Let's start preparing for our celebration.
So this begs us the question, if we are now being told that Chamisa won those elections clearly and fairly, it's only that ZEC announced the wrong result. Are we supposed to believe that Chamisa had plugged all the vote-rigging loopholes except the ZEC? He failed to plug that final loophole. And so ZEC was able to use it and announce the wrong result. If so, are we also saying that God overlooked that loophole? He had evoked the name of God. This was God's plan. And somehow we are now being asked to believe that God's plan was foiled the last minute because God overlooked plugging the one final loophole, stopping ZEC announcing the wrong result. There are some people here who would want to believe anything that Chamisa tells them because they've got this personality cult mentality. They have elevated Chamisa onto a pedestal. He is now a demigod who can do no wrong and certainly cannot be a liar and a con man. And so they're coming up with all manner of explanations why Chamisa cannot be said he lied and conned the people. And their latest one is that Chamisa won the 2018 election, the 2023 election. He only failed to plug the final loophole, i.e., to stop ZEC announcing the wrong result. How anyone can keep on believing all these idiotic lies beggars belief. We cannot keep on having this meaningless, idiotic argument to justify participating in flawed elections. The argument is if you participate in flawed elections on the basis that you have plugged all the vote rigging loopholes, then you've got to accept the result, illegitimate as it might be, because you have accepted a flawed process. We should stop this madness. We should implement the democratic reforms to ensure that the process is credible, free, fair, and the election observers can see it as such. And the process itself starts from having a verified voters roll, making sure that all the candidates have the opportunity to campaign freely. All those is part of the process. We cannot just look at the end result. We don't care about what has happened. Because as much as we are being told here that he had plugged all the other vote rigging loopholes, that is a lie. Of course, people know that is a lie too. Because the voters' roll was in shambles. And ZANU-PF was able to use the loopholes in the shambolic voters' roll to rig the process. We need to accept what is it that constitutes free, fair, and credible elections, and have the guts to stand up and saying, let's get this right, instead of keeping on repeating the same mistake and coming up with feeble, idiotic excuses for repeating the same mistake. I repeat, the process, the electoral process in Zimbabwe is so flawed, so illegal. The only logical step is to withdraw. The only reason why Chamisa and company have continued to participate in these flawed elections is because of greed. ZANU-PF has offered them a few gravy train seats, and they found the offer irresistible. We, the people, should have the common sense to realize what is going on. And stop being conned so easily. My last word, if we are going to accept this nonsense that Chamisa won, it's just that he failed to plug the final loophole, i.e. ZEC announcing the wrong result, then we have got also to accept that God failed, because Chamisa maintained throughout that it was God's plan. I refuse to accept that nonsense. It was never God's plan. Chamisa was lying about plugging the vote rigging loopholes, just as much as he was lying that God was in it. The biggest mistake the people of Zimbabwe can make in 2028 is participate in flawed elections on the basis of another idiotic lie from Chamisa that he has plugged vote rigging loopholes. After 45 years of rigged elections, it's disappointing, to say the very least, that there are some people out there who still want to believe that they can win rigged elections. They can win elections that are so flawed, so illegal, that the only logical step to do is to withdraw. One of the tragedies of Zimbabwe, of course, is that we have had universal suffrage. We have given the vote and the voice to individuals who really have no clue what they're talking about. We have no clue what their responsibilities are as voters. And so they're easily conned into participating in flawed elections only to perpetuate the dictatorship and the nation's suffering. Think about it. Have a good day.